G'day, hi and welcome. Okay, the trap is sprung. No, literally, a trap sprung. I was at the store and my cousin's wife was like, I asked her, I said, "Did you catch your bandit last night?" She said, "No." I said, "The trap was set off though." So I reloaded with peanut butter that giant rat trap that I got on one of my metal picks or whatever. I lent it to the people at the store, their relatives. So I'm like, so I went and reset the trap with some peanut butter. So there's a squirrel in there that keeps setting off the alarm. And I haven't seen Marvin. I'm hoping it's not Marvin. Yeah, like he moved from here to the store. That'd be impressive if he moved that far, but it'd be sad if it was him. I haven't seen Marvin for about a week and a half now. So ever since I saw that cat, you know, it's like that big cat we call it, my nephew and I call it Rover. Haven't seen him, so hopefully he's okay. But I don't know. I could be marvelous by spring. At least he was well fed. I mean, he had 2 peanut butter jars. He ate 2 of those. He had 500 black walnuts, so he had a good life, at least for the past couple of months for sure. I kept him well fed. Well, he was stealing from me basically, but yeah. Little bugger. Hope he's okay. But yeah, so hopefully my channel's still up. Again, I'm going into dangerous territory there, but crazy times we live in. I'm not going to do the play-by-play today. I'll wait a couple of days and then I'll do the play-by-play for the World War III stuff, just because. You got to wait for significant, like the opening shots of the war. You don't, you can binge it, and like you can't tell who's going to win the war at this stage. But right now, it is looking like the United States has lost. Yeah, I guess maybe I'll be talking about it. It's just there's so much to talk about. But I got other stuff I got to get done here today, such as I got to start doing my drum tracks. So yeah. I'm now 2 years in on my drumming. I still suck, but I suck less. Yeah, so 2 years on my drumming, that's cool. 3 years on my bass playing. I have no purchases set up for March. I still got enough, hopefully, to get me through April and maybe hopefully even to May for my living expenses. But I'm gonna have to get back to work soon because like it's that's the problem when you work you're seasonal, right? Is like it's like money goes so fast because my next hydro bill is going to be probably another $800 or whatever. Although if it's really warm this week, in fact, I'm going to start right now. I'm going to turn my heat down a bit because it's like in the pluses out there. So, like, hopefully by the middle of the month, like, I should be able to, like, if I can leave that at 10 degrees, that'll help. Maybe it'll make it worse because it's like temperature will be dropping so much that'll compensate. But as soon as I can start turning off all the other baseboard heaters, the better it's going to be for me. So if I get a day like today where it's like around zero, I should turn off all the baseboard heaters. Save those kilowatt hours, right? Who knows? We might not have them for long. Yeah, things are, no matter which way we go now, like it's done. It's a done deal. 20% of the world's oil supply is now pretty much been, it's on delay. Like again, the Iranians, they're already hitting the oil, right? So again, it takes a long time to take that out, but But there's a couple other things in here that you're probably I was not aware of. Well, sort of aware, but not aware of details of that is playing out now. And we'll have to see what the U.S. air campaign, if they release footage of this. But my hunch is that a lot of this, like again, there's always, everybody thinks the war is always about one reason, right? No, it's a multitude of things. Hegemonies don't just function on one thing. It's I don't know. People have a very simplistic mindset on stuff. It's multiple. multitude of things, right? But this was interesting. I didn't know this myself. About a week or so before Iran was attacked, the thing is that they opened up a train station hub. Think of it like a dock, but for like a big train yard. And the thing about this is this goes back to 2010, 2012 with the Silk Road Initiative by China and the BRICS and all that. And what it is it links the continents together. It's the central hub that will link Europe, Eurasia, Africa, to Asia. Basically, it bypasses the U.S. Navy is what it does. So you can't do a blockade on a train with a ship, right? Unless there's a bridge somewhere. Yeah, I mean, it doesn't mean ships can't attack trains. Yeah, they can. But the thing is that it's a lot harder. So that means the oil doesn't have to go by ship anymore. Yes, it's slow to take it out by train, but it could still flow by train. So what that does is it basically opens up a lot, and China has a lot of investment in this, no doubt. You'll have to go see if you can figure out the details of it. But it's funny, that opens up and then suddenly you're at war, right? That was because what that does is it gives all the region the ability to bypass the petrodollar. So I think we just witnessed the death of, like, no matter what, the petrodollar's done now anyway. Iran is sealed its fate. It's the death of the U.S. empire. That's it. It's done. You guys, like, you might win the battles, but you're not going to win the war. The Iranians, their strategy is superior. It's simpler, but it's superior, and that's why it's superior. It's because it's just low tech, works no matter what. The death count is in dispute. I don't know if you can take anybody's claims, because I don't think anybody really knows. There's no way to verify how many people die from these rocket attacks, because they're just landing all over the place, right? They're not random. Like, they are targeting stuff. There's doubt about that. But a few of them, like, for example, the F-15s, there was 3 shot down. Now, here's what has been, everybody sees the footage of one of them, and that one, I believe, was a friendly fire incident. Now, the thing is when you got a 40,000-pound jet just kind of like doing falling leaf like that, land, God knows where it landed. I hope it didn't kill anybody on the way, on the way down. But apparently, all the pilots safely ejected. So if all 6 pilots safely ejected, it's an F-15E if you're wondering. It's not the single seat. Well, I'm assuming that they were all F-15Es. I know the one that you see is like it's 2 pilots coming out. So they made a safe landing, friendly fire incident. So right there, okay, I started adding up some of it, like what the United States has lost so far, economically. Oh my God, it's bad. Okay, day 1 of the war, you lose $1.2 billion in a radar station complex, right? Pretty much, as well as a $500 million. So that's a lot right there. F-15s, yes, they're old, but you think of all the maintenance, all the pilot training, and all the upgrades. Those jets are still probably about $40 to $50 million a piece. So there's anywhere from $120 to $150 million right there. Ouch. Not to mention just the all these Patriot batteries and stuff like that are getting hit. Not to mention all the missiles being fired. I mean, the Iron Dome stuff. The Israelis. They're firing them off in like rapid succession. It's $1 million a missile or something like that. Like, it's just like absolutely insane. There's no way they're going to win the war. But again, hubris, right? It's like Trump goes at this with the idea. Again, Trump is a bully. He's not a dictator. He's not a negotiator. He has no clue how to negotiate. He's good at real estate. That's it. He should have just stayed as a real estate broker. That's the only thing he's ever been good at. He's a good public speaker. He's a good public speaker. There's that. But other than that, like, he's got nothing, right? So the way Trump views every deal is like a real estate deal. Uh, I win, you lose, that's a good deal. He cannot understand the concept of mutual benefit. And his bully side just basically, if I make a threat, think the movie Moon Over Parador, make a really terrifying threat, people will just cower down and give up right away. They won't even try. Will threaten the Canadian economy with complete utter collapse. Canada says fuck you, mate. Even Trudeau said fuck you, mate. The worst fucking politician in human history. Even, in the 11th hour, he goes, yeah, he grows a fucking spine. You know what I mean? Like who would have thought? And again, I hate Trudeau with a passion, right? Man, this pretty much destroyed my country. Worse than his father. But even he like didn't back down from Trump. Why? Well, he was outgoing anyway, so it's like he could save face. Again, who would fucking like this guy? Even the liberals hated him. But the fact that no, you're supposed to just cave in. Threatens Greenland with annexation. The Greenlanders. They now have fucking the Swedes doing air patrols, and they've got the Danes bringing in special ops forces to counter the Americans. That kind of fucking backfired, you know what I mean? Gonna threaten the EU. EU's like, fine, fuck you, we don't want to do a business deal. Like, Trump has fucked the United States so badly. And then, let's negotiate with Iran, pretend we're negotiating with them, gain their trust, the very little thread of trust, in good faith, Iran comes to, and again, I'm no fan of the Iranian regime. That's the thing, there's no good guys, right? And the way these simplistic kind of like either MAGA or left-wing people, it's like, they're all in on one side or the other, right? It's just complete retardation where it's like Trump can do no good or he can do no wrong. Like Biden can do no good or do no wrong. Like, it doesn't work like that, people. You have to look at it like Trump. Okay, look, it's been a year. I have not found a single real win for the United States in a year. Trump has fucked up that bad. He's fucked up the economy. Okay, when all else fails, like Gerald Celente says, they take you to war. I get that. I do get that. And that's what's going on. But this is basically a war on behalf of Israel. The good news is that the Overton window, like even the average normie, patriot, libertarian normie now knows Israel is a fucking not an ally. Again, I know it's not all Jews, but the majority of them have a problem. And it's you can't unsee it. You can call me racist, bigot, stuff like that. Look, if your mind can't understand and process where the evil's coming, that's a you problem at this point. If you ever want to change the world, you have to be honest. And I've always been as honest. I could be wrong on some things, but this one, I've been following a long time. Look, I used to be, I used to believe the Israeli lines too. Like, oh wow, if Palestine puts down its weapons for a day, there'll be peace in the Middle East. If Israel puts down its weapons for a day, there'll be no more Israel. Like all that. They're going to have a nuke in 3 weeks. Last week they were going to have a nuke in 2 weeks. Now it's 3 weeks. But they've been saying this since 1970. You know what I mean? ICBM, like all these just fucking bold claims, no fucking proof, no, at least George Bush, the lying sack of shit that he was, at least he had gave you like fucked up photos, grainy photos. Like, those are missile silos. They're like fucking the cheese factory or something like that. Like, it's unbelievable. It's unbelievable. And, we're really taking it. Again, the real pro-Trump people, there's less and less of them. The amount of MAGA people that are angry right now because they've been betrayed, and rightfully so. And all these liberals out there going, you voted for this, you voted for this. When those coffins come back with the American flag draped over them, don't you dare shed a tear because you voted for this. No, they did not vote for this. What MAGA voted for was Make America Great Again. What they voted for was to balance the budget, to get out of the endless wars. There's clip after clip after clip after clip of Donald Trump bashing all these endless wars, and rightfully so, right? What happened to that guy? Well, Israel said you had to go to war. Oh, we got to do it. The Zionists said we have to go to war. We got to go to war. You know, Trump only cares about Israel. He doesn't hate the United States, believe it or not. Joe Biden hated the United States. Ocasio-Cortez hates the United States. Hillary Clinton hates the United States. Stuff like that. Barack Obama hated the United States. And it hated hated white Americans predominantly. Trump doesn't hate the American people, strangely enough. He just doesn't care about the American people. It's a little... Six of one, half a dozen of the other. I get it, but there's a distinction to make there, and it's important because if you better want to understand what's going on through observation, you'll have a better lens when you understand that it's not done to hurt the American people. It's just the American people have become irrelevant. It's like these tech giants, whatever. They only care about transhumanism. They don't care about people. We're going to bring in the AI and. It's going to replace all the jobs. Well, what are we going to do with the humans if we're going to replace all the jobs? Oh, we didn't think about that. Yeah, of course they wouldn't think about that because they're fucking nuts. They only care about these crazy, what do you call it? Basically death cult, deconstructionist mentality, right? It's hyper-individualism is not based on right-hand path. It's based on deconstructionist left-hand path ideology. And if you don't understand the difference between left-hand path and right-hand path, it's not a political thing. It's a way of life. Most people on the left tend to be liberals or whatever, and they tend to be left-hand path. Where most people that vote right tend to be right-hand path, right? But you have a very weird thing that happens. That you can be an extremely flaming liberal and still live a right-hand path life. I know it doesn't, and vice versa. You can be extremely right-wing and live the left-hand path life. So if you're looking at egoism, nihilism, unaccountability, hedonism, you're looking at left-hand path. If you're looking at accountability, stoicism, doing right by others, that kind of thing, that's right-hand path. Go research that. I can spend all day talking about it, right? So I'm just going to go with the assumption you know what I'm talking about. Like Trump is of the left. He is of the left-hand path. He is not a right-winger. That's why the people, again, I'm watching one guy that I'm glad he's being so honest. Because now he knows. For me, I've always been more of a political atheist, as Gerald Celente would say. Because I've always saw the merit in the gray area, not the black and the white, And the gray area is this, that my guy can be bad too. You know what I mean? So, yes, I've been bashing Trump for the past year, okay? I've been defending him pretty much the year before that, because years before that, because, they were using lawfare against him. That was very clear. And it's not so much that they were using lawfare against him, it's the idea of lawfare itself. It's a treasonous thing. Number one, it ties up courts from actually charging and taking care of the cases of murderers and rapists and terrorists and whatever on being used politically. It's weaponized. It should never be allowed to. That should be a death penalty offense to use lawfare. Right? But there is no rule of law. And I told people this a decade ago. I said, look, there's no rule of law. It'll take people some time to really realize it. Kind of like how we've lost our countries. The people are now starting to come out of the ether. Hence you see all the remigration now and stuff like that. And even some of the most staunch World Economic Forum, anti-white, Agenda 21, Agenda 2030 politicians have had to kind of pull the throttles back so they don't cause revolutions in their friggin' country, right? But this is going to be everywhere. It's going to be everywhere. So we're in what I call the 10th Crusade. Just understand it that the 10th Crusade does not look like Knights Templar. And, it's not Richard the Lionheart and Saladin meeting out, or the, Baldwin the Fifth meeting out in the middle of Jerusalem. That's not what it looks like anymore. Now what it looks like is John Q. Public bitching about migrants getting, and temporary foreign workers undercutting them and taking their jobs. That's what it looks like. Remigration now. It looks like Muslim enclaves and other, enclaves, basically balkanizing in your cities, creating like a different, like a fifth column kind of thing in your cities. That's what it looks like. And you can call me racist, big, or whatever, but that's what it is. Most of the people that advocate for the mass immigration don't live around the diversity. You know what I mean? As soon as they do, they tend to be like, well, maybe we better be a little bit more nuanced about this, right? So everything's on the table right now. But that said, the enemy is already inside the gate. And the enemy is a strange thing, because the enemy were people that were probably not enemies that have been made into enemies. So in other words, you bomb a country and then take in their refugees, they tend to want to get even with you at some point. So yes, you are going to see terrorist attacks all over the place. Now, don't get me wrong. That's exactly what the establishment wants. Why? Because then they can use all the Palantir stuff, anything that brings in authoritarianism. They're for it, because they don't care about the low-hanging fruit. They don't care how many civilians get killed. They never did. They never will. They don't care about soldiers. Donald Trump does not give a shit about any U.S. servicemen whatsoever. It's like Henry Kissinger said. They're just fucking expendable. They don't care. Whatever. And yes, you've got guys flying planes right now that are enjoying what they're doing. They're like, oh, finally, I get to blow shit up, right? Okay, fine. They don't care. They have no morals. They just follow orders. They're basically, people don't want to hear that. How dare you, our valuable servicemen, they're protecting us. Not when basically a war of choice is the best words I've heard so far. But a war of choice against a country that was not attacking you, that were in peace talk. You were in peace talks with. And you attack them during the peace talks. Now, Trump has kind of figured out that he's fucking around and found out that the Iranians, like I said, would be the most advanced country America's ever fought to date. And it's simple as this. Okay, yes, these rockets are lower tech than the missiles that the Americans are using to fire at them. But the technology is not a leaps in the American technology. As good as a Patriot missile is, and 1 out of 3 is going to miss. You know what I mean? It's just going to completely miss. And maybe 1 out of every 10 is going to fucking malfunction and circle back and, land in a residency. We've already seen footage of this. This is a well-known problem with the Patriot missile system. That the odd missile just goes fucking awry. And some of these missiles are old. Even the newer ones are like, probably months to years old. These things deteriorate over time. And that low-tech rocket that's close enough is good enough, half of them can't be stopped by these missiles. Look, the Israelis, and it was the same thing you saw last June when the Iranians responded. The first couple of nights, it looks pretty good for the Israelis. They're maybe getting about a 50% success rate of shooting stuff down. They say 90 to 90. It's not that. It's not that. It's not even close. Look. If you take all air defense systems that have ever been, right, and how difficult air defense is, right, it is hard enough to shoot down a fighter jet because it can bob, weave, and move and drop flares and distract and all kinds of stuff like that. That's hard enough, right? Trying to hit a moving object that goes twice as fast as usually the fastest jet out there, or a third faster. Like there's a big difference between Mach 2.5 and Mach 6, is what I'm saying. And Mach 6 is unstoppable, even if you know it's coming. It's like, it's bullshit luck if your system can be fast enough to intercept that, just to detonate at the right time. It detonates too early, the missile just flies through the debris. It detonates too late, missile's already past you, right? It's a bullet firing at a bullet. It's literally that. Maybe a bit better than that, but not by much. And this is what I'm saying. When the Iranians make the decision to put the carrier groups at the bottom, and I think they're going to do it, but I started thinking about this last night. Like, why haven't they done that right out the gate? And I'll tell you why. You killed their Ayatollah, right? Now, whether you like the Ayatollah or you don't like the Ayatollah, the majority of Iranians, even though there's Iranians all over the TV right now, oh, we're so glad he's dead, blah, blah, blah. That's PR. That's a handful of Iranians. The majority of Iranians are unified behind the Ayatollah, right? The guy martyred himself. He's like, well, if my people can't leave, neither am I. Come and get me, right? Like, fucking brilliant tactic on, okay, you know, he martyred himself. I mean, he was an old man anyway. Like, I mean, he was going to die soon anyway. He's like, okay, what? Do I got 5 years left, 2 years left? Like, I'm fucking 90 fucking years old or 85 years old, whatever. It's like, I got a good life, you know? Like, you know, it'll be quick. You know, a JDAM will take me, vaporize me in 2 seconds. Like, I won't even feel it. And the way they hit the compound, they hit it with like 10 JDAMs or cruise missiles or whatever they fucking hit it with there. It was the guy's fucking vaporized. At least it would have been quick. You know what I mean? But the thing is that, you know, like, they're going to get even for that. You know, like, they want blood. The Iranians are like, you lied to us twice. You've attacked us twice during peace negotiations. We're never coming back to the table. The Iranian stance is this. You stop, we stop. Right? But the red flag of revenge is up. So that's going to be global. Right? So Muslim, if you're here anywhere, there's a lot of Muslims. Just keep your head on a swivel. I know there was a shooting in Texas, and the guy had something, you know, like a shirt that's something Allah or something like that. I belong to Allah or something like that. Whatever the fucking shirt said. So people think that might be a terror. We don't know if that's linked or not. Could be just coincidence. I doubt it. But yes, the crazies will snap first. The fanatics will snap first. And yes, they are going to start killing people in large numbers. But before that, I think you're just going to see a lot of sabotage, economic sabotage. Rails, like we saw in 2019, where, okay, you took out the, what do you call it, that pipeline there, you know, the Nord Stream pipeline. Okay, fine, yeah, suddenly you got trains going off the rails, and in the States the week after, you got fucking refineries blowing up. And that's usually an indication, like, refineries are pretty damn safe, right? They do catch fire once in a while. But when they catch, like, you get like two oil refinery fires in a year, that's a coincidence. You know, you get 10 in a week, that's sabotage. You know what I mean? Now, the Saudis have taken a hit. Now, mind you, the oil compounds there are just fucking massive. It would take probably about 3 months for the Iranians to, even if they threw everything they had at it, it'd probably take about 3 months to destroy the entire compound. It's so big, right? It takes up a good proportion of the desert, but it slows down production. You know, like the workers, even if the oil can be pumped, it's like, who's going to go work on an oil rig right now in the area? They're getting hit, right? They're not completely knocking them out. They're just damaging them, right? Okay, they can be fixed. But, you know, while you're fixing it, another missile could come in. So everybody's at home now. You know, it's like, okay, well, we've got to sit this out. The United Arab Emirates, you got to think of the airports getting attacked. Just think about this. Like, a lot of people just look at the military assets. They don't look at, like, the civil assets, okay? The United Arab Emirates is the biggest fleet of A380 Airbus jets. These are the largest commercial passenger jets on the planet. You go look at it. Like the 747 beside an A380. The A380 is still bigger. It's just that big, you know? Or the 7777 or whatever. The Dreamliner. It's bigger than that, right? It's not as big as what the Tupolev 225 was, but it's almost as big as a 224. You know? So the thing about that, it's big. It's big. And they are expensive. You hit that. That is an economic tourism hit big time. All these motels that have U.S. personnel in them, again, the idea that only, I think they said the death toll of Americans is 6 now. It's much higher than that. There's no way, because it's just they probably can't tell you that, those motels were full of American people, you know, American soldiers. And we're going to find out one way or the other, but it's like guaranteed. I think, again, there's no way for the Iranians to know how many Americans they've killed from Iran, right? You know, like, they can't go, unless they got somebody on the ground to count the bodies in the rubble. You know what I mean? There's no way to know. But they probably are correct that it's probably between 200 and 500 people that they've killed, you know, of Americans. Now, civilians, who knows? The civilians, we know that the Americans have killed civilians as well as military personnel in Iran, probably a few hundred people, which is kind of amazing when you think about how much firepower is being unleashed. Like, it just, It tells you two things. It tells you, A, that America is bombing a lot of empty buildings because the body counts are not there, right? If it was like it was you bomb a port, there's thousands of dock workers, right? So if they're not there, everybody's gone home. The whole Cyprus thing, and this is something that other military analysts are saying. The fact that the UK has opened its base in Cyprus to the United States, which I think they closed off like an hour or so after, a couple of hours after Starmer says, yeah, we're going to support our ally. The Iranians send a drone and say, yeah, we can hit that too. So that means that base is now closed down, except for basically, I guess like guards and stuff, like guardsmen and stuff like that. But non-essential personnel is gone, right, from that base. So that means the next line is either Italy or Spain. And Spain's like, no, we're out. France, they say, yeah, we're not going to get in, but they didn't condemn the attacks. Starmer, we support our ally, but we're not getting involved. Canada, yeah, we support our ally, we support Israel. Again, like, Carney could have got a win here, and done the right thing, but again, a politician doing something stupid. Like, what was he thinking? Was he thinking, okay, well, if I don't agree with what Trump's doing, we're going to get a tirade or whatever. But then again, there might be a strategic thing here because the Americans are going to attack us after Iran at some point. We're going to have military conflict with the United States. This is crazy, but it's like Trump is a loose cannon right now. He's a loose cannon of hubris. He thinks he's invincible, and if he can't get his way, he's gonna tip over the apple cart. That's what he's gonna do. He thinks he's going to win. Why? Because he looked at the Maduro raid, which nobody asked for that. There's not a single MAGA person that wanted that. And that was not about the women, children, democracy. It was about stealing the oil for Israel so that when Israel started the war, the U.S. started the war, they would have oil supply. You know what I mean? What they didn't realize is that the Iranians could shut that down. They've already destroyed quite a few tankers. So just the loss of these tankers and the oil in these tankers, not to mention the ecological disaster that, again, like, can you fault... And it's so weird to hear that double thing from mainly Jewish pundits that are like, Iran's the number one terrorist. Look at them. Look at the evil they're doing while they're retaliating. Well, the fact that you say that you're retaliating should be the indicator right there that you hit them and they're hitting you back. The way the Israelis view this is that we got to hit you, but they lash out in pain as they strike you, right? How dare you hit back? You're a terrorist if you hit us back. And it's like, trying to it's. Right now, what you're hearing, and again, most people aren't following for it, on the left or the right, is that we're doing this because they're the number one. They've been attacking us for 47 years. And it's like, okay, let's analyze this. What do you mean by attack? They've been arming proxy groups and stuff like that. The same way again, Israel and the United States openly admitted, they called them the Free Syrian Army, and basically armed ISIS, to the point where they got now an Al-Qaeda leader running Syria. That was the whole thing. Like, Syria was the country that was most likely to just fucking stomp Israel out of existence. Which is weird that they didn't, because the way the Syrians viewed this, and the Iranians took note of this is why they're doing what they're doing now, is there was a 10-year war started by the State Department in Israel, like basically in Syria, right? The Syrian war. You had remember you had in 2011, you had Modi overthrown in Egypt, right? But in 2010, part of the Greater Israel Project thing, General Wesley Clark was talking about 2009, taking out 7 countries in 5 years. Well, Syria was on that list. They were going to take out Somalia, Yemen, Iraq, Afghanistan. I forget the other couple, but ending in Iran anyway. So it was 7 countries, right? And now the list has grown. Now this is the irony too. The Israelis are now talking about taking out the Israelis are talking like they have this in the bag, right? That we're going to win anyway, so it doesn't matter. Like they're talking about going to war with Turkey next, and Egypt, who has fucking stayed out of everything, right? Now Egypt can flatten Israel pretty easily. Maybe not easily, but they've got they can do the 1,000 tank to tank battle, right? They can do that if they want. They've got a fairly large air force. They've got lots of artillery. I don't think Israel could take Egypt at this point. But anyway, they're talking about it. And they're talking about taking out Saudi Arabia, a country that is helping them now. Henry Kissinger, I hope he's burning in hell, but he was correct. The worst thing than being, America's friend or being America's enemy is being their friend, right? Well, the same with the Israel. You don't want to be their friend; they'll get you killed. So anyway, like these Gulf state countries that are getting bashed by Iran, it's like, well, like they said, we're not going to take this anymore. We're going to hit everything. See, this is where the Syrians went wrong. Where the Syrians, they saw this weaponry coming in. There was like pretty much every Western nation. Germany was in on this. France was in on this. We were in on it. Sending weapons to the ISIS guys, but basically through the U.S. and Israel, right? And they basically, what they did is they armed the ISIS guys with M16s. This is openly admitted stuff. The U.S. Air Force was constantly dropping weapons to the ISIS guys. Again, ISIS was the luckiest jihadi group in human existence. 2,000 or 4,000 ISIS guys tell the Iraqis that 20,000 Iraqis, hey, you better stand down or we're going to overrun you. And the Iraqis run away. The superior force runs away, leaving 2,300 Humvees, 70 Abrams tanks, 150 artillery gun, all kinds of munitions, to fight war for about 10 years, you know what I mean? Maybe the tanks and stuff won't stay running long, but, like giving ISIS all these war trophies that they can use later, right? Lucky guys. Oh, they found, like in Syria, they found a whole bunch of tow missiles, that Syria's never used. They've never had American-made, these were the German-made ones, tow missiles in Syria. They found a building full of 5 Israeli-made 5.56 ammo. They found another building full. Like these ISIS guys were just finding all kinds like M16s. Just geez, where is all this Western stuff coming from? All these stockpiles. Yeah, how lucky for them. But the Israelis were told by the Russians that the Russians said you could shoot down, the Syrians were told you can shoot down. Israeli aircraft, but you suffer the consequences of that. So the Syrians were more than capable of shooting down Israeli fighters, and they just focused on the weaponry. So instead of shooting down the fighters, they would shoot down the missiles, right? They would shoot down, Israeli cruise missiles. And the Israelis were doing cruise missile attacks, same with the Americans. And the Syrians had about a 50% success rate shooting down missiles and stuff like that. So why didn't they shoot down all the aircraft? Well, it's simple. They didn't want to escalate. They didn't want to trigger you shoot down one Israeli airplane and all the Jews would be out there on the media going, oh my God, they're attacking us, even though they're arming ISIS and treating them in their hospitals. Israel, that is. Well documented, openly admitted. Netanyahu gave ISIS fighters freaking medals for fighting in Syria. It's just, oh no, those were the moderate rebels. Yeah, you remember that? Yeah. Anyway, so war is a racket. So when you hear that, Iran is the terrorist, well, the thing is, Soleimani was the #1 guy at defeating ISIS, right? That's why they took him out. This is why Trump makes the claim that he was getting American soldiers killed. Okay, well, what were they doing in Syria? They were there on behalf of Israel, right? So the Syrians made the mistake of not pounding the shit out of Israel once and for all because they were afraid of an American retaliation. which they got anyway. You had American A-10s flying all over Syria, right? The Iranians helped the Syrians on the backside with training, with other things, logistics, whatever. But then Syria fell. Now you have the an ISIS Al-Qaeda leader running the country, right? Because that's what Israel wanted. So there you go. So basically, the Syrian ally, and I'm not saying Assad was a great guy, but he was stability in the region. There was no reason to take him out of there. So it shows you, like, the Israelis they're not sane. Like, Egypt is a stable country. There's no reason to overthrow Egypt. Turkey, I'm no fan of the Turkish nation whatsoever. Maybe not the people, but their government. But they're not fucking with anybody. Like, yeah, they fuck with people in different ways. That is true. But they're not, like, arming terrorists all over the place or whatever. They're kind of just doing what's in their own interest, and that's it. If you leave them be, they're not going to harm anybody, right? But they tell Israel no every now and then at the UN. They blockade them with their warships around Cyprus when Israel goes to step out, or like, they do block Israel from doing stupid stuff because they have the strength to do it. And again, Turkey is a huge, like, there's no fucking way the Israelis are going to be able to take out the Turks. They have to use the Americans for that one, and there's no way the Americans will be able to take out the Turks on their own territory. Look, if America can't take out 2009, 2010 Houthis in Yemen, you're not going to take out 2026 Houthis, right? And if you can't take out the Houthis, you definitely can't take out Iran. Like, what Trump is thinking is that, and again, it's if you're old enough, you'll remember it, and if you're an Iraqi veteran, you'll remember all the Iraqi people rise up against Saddam, right? Well, that's what Trump is doing. He's just taking the gamble. Just, okay, well, we need to sow as much chaos in Iran as possible. Make the Iranians believe that we're going to come and save them. I don't think most of the Iranians believe that at all. Unless they're stupid. But the thing is you have to understand, every time you send out these protesters, like right now, Iran may or may not have killed 40,000 protesters in the last uprising. You just don't, like, it's all propaganda. You don't know. They say themselves, the Iranians say, no, we only killed 3,000. So we'll say they at least killed 3,000. But most of those were, like, Mossad agents. And again, there's video footage of these protesters running around with fucking flamethrowers, barbecuing fucking Iranian cops. Right? Yeah, you're going to kill those fucking guys. You know what I mean? They're running around with AKs. You know what I mean? You're going to kill those guys. If that was happening in the States, they'd put you down pretty fast. The National Guard would be putting you down pretty fast. But it's only against human rights when the Iranians do it, right? I'm not saying that the Iranians don't have bad human rights records, but there's a lot of propaganda out there too, and a lot of stuff that can be debunked. But the big one is that, yes, they will stomp out. And again, the Israelis have been saying for years that it's virtually impossible to take out the Iranian regime with a color revolution. It doesn't work. Like, George Soros style color revolutions don't work in Iran because they find the Mossad agents all the time and they kill them, right? And the CIA guys, they find them all the time, they kill them. And it's almost always, like, the track record of Israel attacking Iran is, killing scientists and killing politicians. Like, it's well known. Like, it's not, it's not unknown. It doesn't mean Iran's the good guy. It just means that, mob bosses fighting. There are no good guys. I don't care if the Middle Eastern people want to kill each other. That's up to them. None of them get along. Okay, maybe the best we can hope for is that they can come to an agreement where they can hate each other in peace. But with Israel constantly attacking everybody, that's never going to happen. So the Iranians are looking at this saying, okay, well, we see where the Syrians went wrong. Where the Syrians had more, at the beginning of the war, they could have flattened Israel right out the gate, saying, you guys are arming ISIS. Well, Assad was saying that. Assad was saying, look, they're arming them in Jordan. There was video footage of all these guys in Jordan. Half of their leaders were on the CIA's hit list, and here they are being funded by US aid. So when Trump did, cut US aid, that was a good thing to a degree. A lot of people don't realize that. Like, you got pictures of al-Baghdadi and John McCain and all these ISIS Al-Qaeda leaders. Remember John McCain saying, "Oh, these are really good people." Yeah, Like, in fact, I think one of the Syrian leader now, I think he was one of those guys in the photo. Don't quote me on that, but it was they had to scrub those photos from the internet the best they could. But once it goes on the internet, it's you can never really get rid of it. It's just people have to document things. I myself got to get back to documenting things where it's like, okay, as soon as you see the photo, save it. Right? Because when they wipe it from the internet, at least it can be put back on. You know what I mean? And I did this with the banker assassinations from 2008, where I just there was like 3, 4, or 5 banksters getting murdered per week. No wonder nobody testified. No wonder we're just living the death rolls of the 2008 collapse. Right? It's been the long bleed out, like I said. And like I said, there would be no major economic collapse until war comes. Here we are. So when Klaus Schwab told you that the future is just going to be all these little conflicts all over the place, they weren't taking a guess at it. They were telling you this is what we're doing. Again, they always make it look like it was, we're just accidentally right all the time. Yeah, because they have to tell you all the crazy shit that they're doing, right? These people are fucking evil, and they're all in on it. There's not a good leader anywhere in the world. There's some more tolerable than others, but it's just because they don't have the power to do all the stupid stuff that they're doing. You see the big guys doing. But anyway, I started thinking about this. Okay, so Iran is telling the United States that no, we're not going to renegotiate. So they're asking Italy, I believe in Italy or Spain, to host new talks, right? Which is a back down from the United States side, right? Where they're trying to get the Iranians back to the table. And most people have looked at that. I myself did not follow these talks too closely, but the gist of it is the United States and Israel didn't take yes for an answer. The Iranians have been agreeing, and again, there's an irony here. And then I started thinking, okay, taking out Ayatollah Khomeini is a big thing. Yes, they wanted to take him out, but not for regime change. No. Because they know they're not yes, there are a lot of people in the State Department are fucking retards. There's no doubt about that. They have this Hollywood ideology of how, you cut the head off the snake and that's it, the whole regime collapses. It doesn't work like that. It might work like that in Asia, but it doesn't work like that outside. Professor Morandi is correct on that. Like it's like an Asian style government where it's like you take out the leader, the whole government collapses, right? That's not how the Persians work. They have, lines of secession. You take out this guy, well, these guys take over. Take out these guys take over. It never ends. There's always the new guy, right? But there's one thing that a lot of people missed, and it makes sense now why they took out the Ayatollah. It has nothing to do with regime change. No, because regime change won't work. You have to go with the ideology of a people that just basically vaporized 70,000 people in Gaza. What are they? They're genocidal maniacs. Okay, so the majority of Israel supports the bombing of Gaza, right? Displaces 1.5 million, 2 million people, whatever it is. And to the Israelis, they're like, no, we killed 70,000 terrorists. It doesn't matter how old they were. If they were babies, they were terrorists. If they were 18 years old, they were terrorists. The average person age of a person killed in Gaza is basically between 15 and 18. So they're all terrorists, right? Okay, we'll go with that. Then you start thinking, okay, it's pure evil, right? Pure evil. Milosevic in the 90s didn't kill anywhere near that. We executed him for crimes against humanity. But the Israelis, they get American bombs to do it with, right? Can't even make this up. Then I started thinking, okay, well, that's clearly genocide, okay? And if you listen to the Israel, again, I'm not saying the Arabs don't say the same thing, but the Israelis have shown and displayed, their potential for genocide. So I'm like, okay, unless they're like, if they're any, Israeli general that's worth their salt would understand that going toe-to-toe with Iran is a lose-lose situation for everybody involved, right?
but the Persians will come out on top. They're a bigger nation. They're 91, 94 million people. They've got a 500,000 man army. They've got months of old rockets to fire off, and they can replenish at least 100 hypersonic rockets a month, and probably thousands of drones, right? And they've got the ability to fight this war for months on end. And we're 3 days in, and the losses on the American side, maybe not body count, but just assets count, is fucking high. Very high. You can't take losses like that every 3 days. Never mind, like, what is, like all the people that are stranded. Like, there's people stranded in the Middle East that can't get out, right? They can't fly out. Again, you got to think of all these economies that are going to get destroyed from just the airports getting destroyed. You know what I mean? To replace all those airliners, I mean, wink, wink, nudge, nudge, Bombardier. You might want to make some sales pitches for some, CS 500s or whatever. It's 300s. Like, now's the time. Fucking start tooling up, because we're going to have a lot of airliners. Every airliner's a couple of $1 million. An A380 is like $100 million or something like that, or $1 billion, whatever it is. It's a lot of money. It's astronomical. 747s are multi-million-dollar airplanes. $100 million, $200 million, whatever they are. It's astronomical, right? The oil losses, which affect absolutely every aspect of commerce pretty much in the region, and will have effects on the global economy. Like, no matter what, the economic shock is going to tidal wave the world. You can thank the Israelis and the Trump administration for this. Every neocon, But I started thinking about it. Okay, the way the Iranians are fighting, okay, they're not utilizing their air defense systems. I don't know why. They haven't sunk the carrier groups. They clearly have the abilities to do this. They've ranged them with a couple of rockets, just to see what the response would be. Again, they're probing, but they haven't done it. It doesn't make sense. They could do it because that would be the ultimate humiliating defeat, and it'd be the death of the United States. The first aircraft carrier that goes to the bottom of the ocean kills. That's it. America's no longer a superpower after that. It might have nukes, but it won't be a superpower after that. It will not have the ability to project power. If you can't project the aircraft carrier, I don't think American aircraft carrier, maybe some were lost in World War II, but I know some were attacked in Vietnam. But you think of like the attack on the USS Enterprise in World War II, with the Japanese kamikazes smacking the shit out of it. It still stayed floating. It was badly damaged, but it survived, right? It takes a lot to take an aircraft carrier out. That is no small feat. Aircraft carriers, I remember when they were trying to sink one that was like to turn it into a coral reef. Yeah, Donald Trump saying that basically, they sunk like 10 Iranian warships. Yeah, the Iranians probably look at it and said, no, that's not how you fight a war. Like, it's obsolete technology. It doesn't, you're not going to go toe to toe with it. But that said, why haven't they sunk the aircraft carriers? They could clearly do it. The Yemenis can take on one aircraft carrier group, and the other two can be taken on by Iran without probably too much problems. So why haven't they done it? Well, I think they're going to say I think that's going to be the grand finale. I think what they're going to do is, because we got a lot of U.S. soldiers trapped in the region. Trump is talking about boots on the ground. That's going to go over well, I'm sure. Yeah, what are they going to do? A draft? I don't think that's going to fucking work. We'll throw you in jail if you don't go in the draft. Yeah. And think of all the jackboot thugs that are going to have to enforce that. Good fucking luck. You're going to try to draft veterans that have got more combat experience than you. Good fucking luck. I'm sure there's the idiots that will sign up for it, believing that, well, we got to go fight terrorists. Yes, there's the lowbrow people. I get it. There's some people, they were fucking strangled at birth or something. I don't know, by the umbilical cord. Anybody going and joining up on the military, U.S. military now, like, you got to understand, you're not defending your country. You're a fucking mercenary army for Israel. That's it. That's what it's always been. You know what I mean? There's no honor in it. No honor whatsoever. Especially preemptive wars or wars of choice. You know, like there's no, and the thing is there's no moral argument for it. So that's why they come up with all these bullshit things and call you names and try to call you coward or liberal. You're a liberal. You got half of these conservative guys out there, these Iraqi veteran guys, that are like getting called, you know, that have been, people have been following them from years, but because they don't want to go and fight the Iranians, somehow now they're a fucking libtard. Like, are you kidding me? But that's the mentality you're dealing with, right? Those people can go fuck themselves. You know, you're not conservative. You're just a fucking Zionist shill at that point. You're inhumane. You're inhumane. You do not believe in peace. You do not want a stable world. And again, like the send Byron thing. Yeah, they should send Byron Trump. Put him right on the fucking front line. Make him give him a rifle and with a bayonet. Make him do the first fucking charge. You know what I mean? And because these politicians, they never have any skin in the game. They've got they make money off the war. You know, it's like, oh, I got my investments. You know, but they don't put their children in war's harm. I think for any politician to sign on to war, if they have children, if they're old enough, they have to be sent to the front line. If they're not old enough, their children have to be executed. Why? Just to show that you truly believe in the war. You know what I mean? It has to cost you something. Or they have to forfeit their lives at the end of the war. You say, okay, here's the deal. You sign on to it, okay, but when this war's over, you're going to die for your nation. You know, you'll get a medal or whatever, and be honored or whatever. We'll make it honorable for you. But no, you really believe in killing all those people over there. But war should not be allowed to be preemptive. Period. If Iran would have actually hit you, yeah, sure, go fuck them up. But I started thinking about this, and this made more sense than anything. Okay, the Iranians have been telling the Israelis that they're not going after a nuke forever and a day. Why? Because the Ayatollah is pretty much, because he's was a hardcore Muslim. It was against his religion, and the Ayatollah was the number one guy, pretty much saying, no, let's not get a nuke. We're not going to do that. And so far, there's no proof that they have a nuke. Right? There's no evidence whatsoever. There's enrichment. Yes, they've enriched higher than what they did, so they could probably build one if they wanted, if they haven't bought one already. But I'm not saying they don't have it, but there's no smoking gun here, right? So the problem is they want the Ayatollah not for regime change, because they know he's going to be replaced in 2 seconds, and he already has been. What it is they want a guy in there that wants a nuke so that the Israelis can get moral justification. And you just watch the news in the next, like Fox News and shit like that. We're like, oh my God, the Iranians, the new guy, he's going to go after a nuke. We have to nuke them preemptively. Why? You say, and I don't logically, like, this is something that Canadian Prepper was trying to get through to that boomer guy. Yeah, sure, you're an intelligence officer, whatever, I get that. But half you guys are fucking brain dead. You know what I mean? He's not as rude as I'd be, but I'm just like, okay, you don't get it. You're using boomer logic. You're going, well, they're not going to do it because they know if they do that, they'll be turned to glass. You're missing the point. The Israelis will do the Samson option and nuke Iran because they're insane. These people are a death cult. They're genocidal maniacs. They want to kill everybody. I know it's not all of them, but the majority of them want to kill everybody around them. There's everybody's trying to kill us because you're trying to kill everybody else. Again, that's why we shouldn't be in the Middle East in the first place. If Iran and Israel want to go at it toe to toe, fine, let them. Just make it between those two countries. You want to support, and then Iran's after you. You know what I mean? Look, the British. Starmer tried to be a fucking smart guy for 5 minutes, saying, yeah, we're going to let the Americans, because I bet you he never thought in a million years that the Iranians could hit fucking Cyprus. The Iranians say, yeah, we'll just send one drone just to make the message clear that, yeah, we can hit you too. Again, when you see fucking rockets raining down in London Tower and taking out Big Ben, it's going to be a fucking wake-up call. I don't know if they could reach the United States yet. But I mean, it's just about booster stages. You know, it's like, okay, this rocket makes it 1,200 kilometers. This one makes it 2,000. This one makes it 3,000. Now, if the reports are right, they have anti-shipping missiles that can reach at least 3,000 kilometers, well within the range of these aircraft carriers. So my take is this: is that the only way that, like, they don't want to take out the Iranian regime, because that's not what the Israelis want. There's still 91 million Persians in their way. They can't have that Iran until they kill every single Iranian. You know. So in other words, the Israelis are looking for pretext to drop nukes on Iran. Will they do it? Yes, they will. Why? They're insane, right? They, you know, like you say, yeah, but the radiation will like destroy everybody in the region. Yes and no. Look, people survived Hiroshima, right? And it's not like the Israelis care about human life. They don't. They care about is like Jews. They care. That's all they care about, because they believe they're chosen people and all that. And they fear death extremely. But like the Israelis, the reason why they get the Americans to fight for them is because they're not willing to take any risks whatsoever. But the thing is it doesn't mean they're not insane. Yes, the Israelis will drop nukes just to kill. Like if they could drop a couple of nukes and wipe out, say 40, 50, 60% of the Iranian population, even if everybody in the region gets irradiated, they don't care about that. It's for the Greater Israel Project. They don't care about, the neighboring countries. They don't care if the radiation blows into Saudi Arabia. They don't give a shit about that at all. You know what I mean? Like, you have to understand, these people are fucking evil. Like, just listen to them. Like, they're evil. They're fucking evil. It's not my words, it's theirs. You know what I mean? So, but we'll see. Netanyahu, he's the fucking most evil guy on the planet right now. Like, it wasn't the Ayatollah. The Ayatollah was no sweetheart, but yeah. But anyway, we'll see how that plays out. But I'm still wondering why they haven't really taken out the aircraft carriers yet. I think what they're going to do is, okay, they're blinding the radar stations. They're going to take out the Patriot systems, or run them out of, whatever. And then, like, I know they've hit Israeli intelligence agencies. It's hard to get information out of Israel because there's such a blackout. Like, you can be basically jailed indefinitely if you release, basically footage, right? Like, most of the footage you're seeing of shit hitting Israel is from, like, Lebanon and stuff like that. They're just, they're on the building tops just watching it, sitting there cheering it on or whatever. Yes, the Israelis are hitting Hezbollah and Hamas and stuff like that. They're attacking Lebanon. They're talking about a ground war in Lebanon. Like, there's no way for the Israelis to fucking win this. And remember, there's end times prophecy too. These people, yeah, they want to go out in a blaze of glory. I get it. The Iranians, they're like, okay, well, if we're going down, everybody's coming with us. This is what Syria should have done. Saying, yeah, okay, well, if Israel and the United States are going to do that, we've got to attack the bases. Because if anything, Syria would have been in a better position because they could have used the chemical weapons to destroy all the American bases, right? But they weren't monsters. They didn't do that, right? The Iranians are like, well, we don't want to do that, but we're going to make sure that all the Americans, the new negotiations is going to be the Americans have to leave the Middle East. But what my fear is for the Americans is that, okay, you're going to be staying out of the Middle East. No one's going to be allowed to leave alive. Meaning, look, they're already targeting these motels, and it's easy to track where the soldiers are going. You know what I mean? There's so many of them. Like, they're white guys. They're walking all over the place. They're gonna stand out, right? The proxy groups are already starting to have gun battles in these Gulf states against. Right now, like I know one U.S. embassy has been hit. Can't remember which Gulf state country has been hit with a drone. So people are dead because there's people in there. You know what I mean? Like these embassies. Remember what happened in Libya under the Clinton administration, the Obama-Clinton administration? Yeah, because that had a lot to do with like the ISIS thing and all that, and I'm sure it had stuff to do with the Epstein stuff or whatever. And a lot of people think that this war is just about the Epstein thing. It's part of it. It's all linked. It's all linked, right? And again, it's getting to the point where it's just like the lies are so openly, it's so easy to see because the people out themselves and what they're going to do. So Donald Trump is just grasping at straws. Like, what is he going to be able to go to shake the hands of a widow of a dead serviceman? I don't think so. Like, she's going to slap him, which would be the best. Why? Because one good thing that's going to come out of this, hopefully, because look, America is on its way down big time. Yes, it has a long way to go. It's still the number one economy just because it's so big. But it's not going to be the number one economy for maybe a few more months at most because of the fallout, the blowback, the fallout. But the blowback is going to get so many people killed. The good news is that both the left and the right are going to become anti-war. Meaning, when Joe Biden and Obama did the bad things, you can't just say the other guy's got to go to jail for doing the same thing the last guy did. It's just Trump has taken it to a whole new fucking level. And you finally hit a country that has already proved several times that it can hit you back. Like the big fucking writing on the wall was the Soleimani thing. When I say that, well, when the Iranians scale these rocket attacks up, they're going to control the region. The Iranians are going to be the most powerful nation if they survive this. And I think there's like a 95% chance they're going to endure this. They become the most powerful nation in the region. The only one that could probably rival them would be Turkey. Now, if there's a Turkish-Iranian alliance, you've got a super PAC that you won't get past. You know what I mean? There's no way about that. Now, I don't think Turkey and Iran will ever be friends, but they might be frenemies. They might say, okay, well, when Israel steps out of line, between the two of us, we could kick the shit out of them and the Americans. You know what I mean? I don't know if the Turks will ever put their necks out on the line like that, but there is stuff that they can do. They did it in Syria. You know what I mean? Like, they're like, okay, yeah, you guys could put the SDF there, backed by the United States, to fight Assad. Sure, go ahead. But we're killing them because they're fucking, Kurds, right? We hate those guys. So we're going to go kill them. And the United States couldn't do anything about it. Now, mind you, took a lot of losses trying to fight those guys. They still are. But the thing is that it was, the Americans couldn't stop the Turks in that region, in Afrin and stuff like that, to take out the Kurdish SDF, the Syrian Defense Forces, right? And those guys were fighting, the Syrian army, right? And the thing about that is that when you understand like how these proxy groups work and stuff like that, like right now, Iran has had proxy groups because the way the IRGC works is they're kind of like Hezbollah in a sense that what they do is they back militia groups, and stuff like that. Like, look, the Israelis were bombing Christians last year, big time in Lebanon, right? They were bombing Christians. Where were all the Christians, evangelicals in the States? Oh, no, well, that's the chosen people. They're fighting Muslims. And they killed like thousands of Christians, right? What I mean? Like, so the hypocrisy is gone. So that the good news about that is that you're seeing, the left and the right agree about anti-war, that these wars are all bankers' wars. They're all for Israel, pretty much, predominantly. There's no other way to look at it. Like, I don't know how anybody's is going to sit there and try to gaslight you and say this war's, not a war of choice for Israel. Like, who else benefit? How does America benefit by attacking Iran? Again, the most technologically advanced country that the United States has ever fought. You know what I mean? Like Vietnam, yeah, they had air defenses in Vietnam, right? And that was the second most advanced country the United States has ever fought. Maybe Iraq would be third, right? And then after that, like Afghanistan, they had no air force. So sure, you could have air bases, and this is something that Trump doesn't understand, and I guess his generals are stupid too. It's like, yeah, the reason why we're able to fight 19 years war in Iraq and Afghanistan is because we had all these air bases and everything like that, and they had no air force, and they didn't have all the rockets. They had RPG-7s and AK-47s and small arms. That's all these rebel groups had. Gee, why We had A-10s. You know what I mean? Like, you can't fly A-10s over Syria without them getting shot down. You can't fly Apache gunship helicopters over Iran without getting shot down. You know what I mean? It's not possible to fly that stuff over Iran. When they do, you're going to see large takedowns. Like the Iraqis, you have to understand, most of the equipment they had, even though they're in such an oil-rich country, they were sitting there without fuel. They didn't have night vision. They didn't have, really good cruise missiles and stuff like that. They had Scuds and stuff like that. And basically, Iranians have just basically made like Scuds 3.0. So first version of a Scud launcher would be like World War II with the B-1, B-2 rockets. That's kind of like your prototype cruise missiles and ballistic rockets, right? On, like large scale. So this sounds strange, but a refined V1 rocket or V2 rocket buzz bomb is good enough to win the war. You know what I mean? Like, it's good enough to win the war. And they got way more accuracy than that. You know what I mean? Because it's the reach, right? They are hitting Cyprus. They can hit Cyprus. They can hit Italy. They can hit Italy. They can hit the UK. A lot of people they might not have a lot of rockets that go that far, but they can hit that far. So if they start hitting RAF bases, if Starmer commits the Brits to war, which is not very popular with the British people, they want to stay out of it. But if Starmer says, well, they hit our base now, we got to go into war. Okay. Well, the RAF bases in the UK could be hit by the Iranians. Again, what the Iranians do is they say, okay, we got an AIM-54, a U.S.-made AIM-54 style missile. It has 100-mile range. Okay, well, let's make it have 140 miles. Let's make the new one a little bit longer with more fuel. That's all they do. They just add booster stages. That's all they do. Add capacity. And because they do this, they're honing in on their, the influence. But they can hit, I don't know what it was as of last night, but they were at 27 U.S. bases hit. Name me a time in human history when 28 or 27 U.S. bases could be hit, right? The F-15, the vulnerable F-15, well proven in battle. Yeah, sure, did great over the skies of Iraq. I don't think there's any real confirmation of any Iranian jets actually being shot down. Maybe some stuff got destroyed on the ground by F-35s or something like that, but I don't think there's been any air-to-air. I don't think the Iranians are going to bother with the Air Force. They don't need it. They don't need to put their aging F-4 Phantoms in the air. They don't. But if they do put those Su-34s and F-4 Phantoms, what they're going to do is they're going to put long-range tanks on them and long-range missiles on them, even if they can only carry 2 missiles each, anti-shipping missiles. And they go way out in the ocean with about a 2,000-mile range, okay, and just stay outside the envelope of the U.S. fighters. They could target the carrier groups that way if they wanted. But they don't need to do that, though, because they can get them from shore. They've got 3,000 kilometer range, which is 1,800 mile ranges on their some of their anti-shipping missiles, and those are hypersonic missiles. You ain't going to stop them. But what I'm thinking is the way they're going to attack is they're going to overwhelm with drones, obviously, followed up by cheap cruise missiles. The odd one might get through, because you have to understand, they can jam a lot of the warships can jam a lot of signals, right? So, and then just rain random ballistic rockets. But the ballistic rockets are going to be used like artillery, where they don't detonate when they hit something. They're going to, airburst. When a battleship in World War II would find another, battle cruiser, battleship, or frigate, or whatever it would come up against, at about 30 kilometers out, okay, they would say, okay, fire for effect. So the guns would be spread in such a fashion when they'd fire a volley from the battleship, maybe they fire one round at a time, it might blow up, say, 100 feet from the enemy ship. They might get lucky and get a direct hit. At about 25 miles out, they start firing a couple more, right? And it picks up. And okay, now it doesn't hit the ship, but some of the shrapnel damaged an antenna or something, you know? And then they get into 20 miles. Okay, now they're firing, say, like a round every minute or so, and trying to keep them on course. Like the Corvettes and everything, they're zigzagging and they're fine, but the big ships, they don't maneuver fast, right? So while they're trying to stay ahead of them, but now you got stuff getting damaged on the deck. But the battleships were, they're like fucking 3 feet of fucking armor on some of the spots on them, so they could take a hit. Modern warships can't take a hit. They can shoot through them with a .308 rifle. Maybe not clean right through, but you can shoot through most of the hulls. Are only maybe an inch thick or so. That's it. Then once you get into, say, like the 20 miles out, they start trying to hit you, right? So some of the shells are airburst, fire for effect. A lot of times the shrapnel destroys antennas, it destroys this, it destroys that. 15 miles and out, they start to range you. Okay, to the point where it's like, okay. Let's change up the shells from burst to something more like like an equivalent to an anti-ship missile, right? And they mix it up. At 10 miles, they got you ranged in, right? And you get full volleys. And then at that point, it's who's the better punching bag, this battleship or that battleship? Well, that was World War II. My hunch is that the Iranians probably say, look, our rockets are not accurate enough to hit a moving target, but the shrapnel could probably shred the ship balls out of radar systems, even if it doesn't sink the ship. In other words, you blind the ship, you send I have a hunch that's what they're doing with these rockets. They fire a couple of rockets, they fired 4 so far, and they said they ranged nowhere near the carrier group. That's what the U.S. thing was. Other people, there's reports out there that there's an aircraft carrier, hobbling into port because it's so badly damaged. The thing we don't know is, okay, of the first 3 deaths, or now 6 deaths, is where these people died. If they died on ship, then it means the Iranians got close. And that tells you everything you need to know at that point. What we don't know, okay, is whether or not that's what the Iranians are doing, right? And my hunch is that's what they're doing. They're going to use these rockets to fire for effect, meaning they can't stop them from coming in. Maybe they can stop. The rockets are unlikely to actually get a direct hit, but they could fire, maybe they send shrapnel like 200 feet, 200 to, maybe 1,000 feet from the, picture like pop can size or golf ball size shrapnel, metal shrapnel, just shards flying, 1,000 feet. That's a big airburst, right? So it's a big airburst. It won't destroy a ship at all, but it might damage a fighter jet from taking off. It might damage the radars. Once the radars are blinded, then in comes the drones. Then you can't jam the drones. At that point, the drones probably won't sink a warship, but the cruise missiles following in after them will. Or they just fire a volley of 1,000 cruise missiles. But the thing is, if they can use the thing is it's the radar jamming that's at that range. It's the radar jamming from the warships that make the hits unlikely, right? That said, the Houthis, even with some of their anti-shipping missiles, they've made the U.S. carriers swerve a few times. There's twice, or at least once for sure, where one aircraft carrier had to swerve so hard that a fucking F-18 flew off the deck. Like it fell off the deck, right? Just to be, because the thing was right on target, right? So my hunch is that's how it's going to happen. Is they're going to range it. They're going to use the rockets like fire for effect to damage radar stations and jammers and what have you. If they can get a fire going on a warship, whatever, or just to burn up as much of the missiles as possible, and then send everything else in. Again, the deck guns, whatever. Send in 1,000 drones per carrier group. They've got the stocks to do it. They've got the range to do it. It's just if these things can get jammed that easy, then there's no point in sending them because it's a waste of ammo, right? It's best to send into a target. But that said, if they can hit the radar dome, like a 1.2 billion, get past the $1.2 billion air defense radar dome, right, which would have jamming technology. There's no doubt about that. You wouldn't have a radar like that there without jamming technology, right? Which would be much more powerful than any warship could. And a cheap Shahed drone made it in there and destroyed it. And then the rockets followed suit, right? Took out the rest of the compound or damaged it badly. God, I'm sure tens of people there, because they would not, now mind you, those could be Saudis that are working there too, so they're not going to count those losses, right, as American losses, but they are. Once those radars are blind, you're dead. You're dead. And that's what's happening. So my hunch is they're going to encircle, with rebel groups, they're going to encircle all these embassies, because they're being attacked. Yes, there's a couple of soldiers shooting people from the embassy, but when it's go time, you're going to see what you saw in Libya. Basically, there's nothing the Saudi government can do. They could put soldiers there, but are they really going to sacrifice their soldiers for Americans? Probably not. The UAE, Oman, they don't have the militaries that can take on the rebel groups. Yeah, sure, they'll have shootouts, whatever. But the Americans are going to be there. If they're in their rooms without fucking weaponry, even at that, it's like, okay, yeah, there's 1,000 U.S. soldiers here. Yeah, but there's civilians in there too. Well, too bad for them. You're going to see, again, just rockets pummeling these hotels. Then where are you going to put all these Americans, right? How are you going to get them out? That's the thing. And if you try to move them to get them out, there's probably people watching, and they're going to say, look, yeah, they're moving them to this airport. They're loading on domestic airliners as we speak. Take out the airliners. Again, it's a weapons-free total war scenario going on, and the Iranians, again, they're out for blood. If we look, there's probably about 40,000, 50,000 people. Well, if you add up the warships, all that, that's probably, like I say, 10 to 15,000 people with all these. If there's 28 warships per carrier group, between 14 and 28. So you're looking anywhere between 7 to 14,000, 15,000 people in just each carrier group. That's 45,000 people right there. You probably have another 30 to 40,000 personnel that were sitting on these bases that are now no longer in the protection of the base. So if the U.S. military bases can't protect them, what chance do these soldiers have in a fucking five-star motel? What I mean? You see where I'm going with this? This is that was a bad strategy in a way. Okay, you get these guys to hunker down in the bunkers like they did in the other one. If that means these bases were a bad design, a really bad design. Yeah, and not only that, even if the bunkers were a good design, a month of not eating is going to starve people. Again, those soldiers, once they leave the region, they're never going to be allowed to come back again. The Iranians will not allow it. It's not going to be just okay, well, what Trump thought was going to happen is that the Iranians would be so scared when 1,000 bombs dropped on them in the night that they would just, okay, we're going to come to the table and talk again, right? We're just going to lay down, right? They didn't. They fought back, right? And you can't fault them for fighting back. If somebody came up and punched you in the face and you start fucking wailing on them and kicking the shit out of them, you can't feel bad for that person. You picked a fight, and again, that's the way most of the world sees it. Most people are not on the side of the United States. The United States and Israel are the bad guys here. They picked the fight, And they did it so sneakily and underhandedly while they were trying to appease distract the Iranians with peace talks, right? Attack them during the peace talks. Like, who in their right mind would negotiate anything with the United States at this point? Again, it's the number one betrayal Trump did to the Americans is the trust. Nobody trusts the United States for anything. Not for trade deals, not for definitely nothing to do with peace, whatever. It just, the United States has just destroyed its reputation, right? They're not a stable country right now. And the Iranians, the way they got to be looking at this is like, if we don't kill those guys now while we're capable of killing them, like the rally around the flag won't be enough. Like, you could send every American soldier. There's not enough of them. Look, if you sent all 4 million U.S. personnel, I don't know how much of that is fighting force. Most of that, like about 80% of the U.S. military is supporting role. A lot of people don't realize. Like the Russians, they were like 10% supporting role and 90% fighting role. What they found out is that that's why your tanks are sitting there in columns with no maintenance. You know what I mean? It's the opposite. Like your fighting force is the small part. So even if you can get all 4 million U.S. troops there, okay, it's not enough to take on the 500,000 man Iranian army. Numbers wise, yes, but you have to understand the second you put boots on the ground in Iran, it's gonna make fucking it's gonna be like Iwo Jima. Like, you're just gonna get slaughtered. And there's no way the U.S. public could take a 5,000 man loss in a day and not have a civil war. There's no way. There's no way. Especially on a war that didn't have to happen. Like World War I, World War II were different because people couldn't figure out. Like, people trust their governments too much. Even still, you have to understand the people in the Epstein files who were questioning other people in the Epstein files who told you everything was safe and effective. And that 2 weeks to quail the curb. you remember that? Do you remember that? All those lies? Yeah. And then gaslighted you every other time and called you racist, bigot, far right, Nazi, anti-Semite, blah blah blah, and all this stuff. Okay, these are the same people that are saying, "Well, we might have to do a draft now, but we're only going to be at this war for like a few days," and then it turned into a week. Now it's up. Well, it's going to be 3 weeks. Now it's 4 weeks. Yeah, World War One. Yeah, it's going to be over in 4 months. World War Two. Oh yeah, it's going to be over in 6 to 8 months tops. Korea. Yeah, we're going to be in and out of there in like Trump's in and out thing. Like again, people still don't get this about the Maduro rate. Chances are Maduro was in on it himself. Like that makes the most sense, right? Because like, who else would be the best to give the information how to get around the air defense systems, right? The U.S. is not that good. It's good, but it's not that good. Like I say, the like 1970s, 1960s equipment is dangerous enough. You know what I mean? It's not as good as modern equipment. I know how much better the modern equipment is when you analyze it for the equipment. But in theater, a 1960s Soviet, S-2 missile can knock you out of the sky. You know what I mean? Like, if it hits you, you're dead. You know what I mean? Even if the missile technology is a little bit better, missiles don't do good in sandstorms. Missiles don't do good in fog. They don't do good in extreme cold weather, extreme hot weather. They malfunction. They're high maintenance. Like, this stuff, whatever you get for, because people think it's like a Call of Duty game or a DCS game or whatever, where it's like, okay, I'm in my fighter, I locked onto the other fighter, I fired my missile, and you automatically shoot them down. Half the missiles are going to miss. And if the pilot on the other side is any good, almost all the missiles are going to miss. Right? And you only need the numbers to see that. Like, I forget which air war it was. It was probably the Israelis and the Egyptians, where there was like 150 aircraft in the sky, right? There was missiles flying all over the place. Not, if the missiles were as good as advertised, there shouldn't have been a single airplane that would have survived that counter. Only a handful of airplanes got shot down. You know what I mean? Like, it was, and most of them were probably taken out by guns. You know what I mean? Mind you, that was a long time ago, and the missile technology is better. But it's never that good, And again, you got these people like okay, with the um, about the schoolgirls in Iran that got killed. Some are saying it's 80. Some say it's like 180 that got killed. Whatever it is, it doesn't matter. They're schoolgirls got killed. So most believe that okay, no, it was just an Iranian rocket that malfunctioned and hit the school, and they're blaming it on the Americans. Totally believable, totally legit. Because like there was one guy who's like, the odds of an American bomb straying and killing people. I'm like, did you not? There's 1.5 million Iraqi civilians dead from the Iraq War. Okay, a fraction of that were actually Republican Guard. The rest were civilians. Yes, U.S. bombs stray all the time. JDAMs, like I say, those fucking things were hitting weddings. They were hitting fucking funerals. They were hitting fucking schools, hospitals. And you have to understand, a lot of this shit is targeted in. Oh, there's a building that looks like a compound. Maybe there was an asset near. Maybe there was like a drone near that say, okay, well, we're going to hit the schoolgirls, but we get to take out the drone. Oh, collateral damage. We don't care about those fucking people anyway. We'll just blame it on the Iranians. They'll just blame it on us. Nobody will know. So yes, the United States, yes, they will bomb children. They've been doing it for fucking 70, 80 years. Vietnam, fucking F-4 Phantoms and Thunder Chiefs flying over fucking like villages, fucking napalming the shit out of them. Oh yeah, but it's all Viet Cong in there. It's all terrorists, right? Yes, they will bomb women and children. Yes, the U.S. pilots don't care. They don't care about killing women and children. They care about having fun dropping bombs. That's all they care about. There's no honor in it. That's why they call them fly-by button murderers. It's true. Like this idea, like, look, in Libya, okay, the only Air Force that actually showed any restraint whatsoever was the Canadian Air Force, where they're like, we were going to drop the bombs, but it was right close to like a fucking market. The market was full of people. We couldn't drop the bomb. We would have killed like fucking 100 people. And people are like, oh, you guys are cowards or whatever. It's like, no, that's a professional fucking pilot. It doesn't mean Canadian pilots didn't kill any civilians, but they at least, went with the Geneva Convention rules of engagement. The Americans don't do that. The Israelis definitely don't do that. The Israelis, they don't care how many people they kill. This should be fucking pretty obvious by now. I mean, they fucking Dresden, they pulled like 10 Dresden's bombings on fucking the Gaza Strip. I think it's pretty safe to say that they're committing genocide. Oh, how dare you call it, you anti-Semite? Well, I'd rather be an anti-Semite than a genocidal maniac. So, yeah, there we go. Guilty. No, the Iranians, like, again, I'm not on their side, but I can understand what they're doing. Like, they are going to make sure that the Americans leave the region, but they're not going to be dumb enough to make the mistakes of Syria and let the U.S. go. Like, the U.S. bases that were in Syria, the Syrians should have just fucking overran them. Look, Iraq is the wild card again. The Iraqis are sort of getting pulled into this because there's Iraqi militias that are attacking U.S. bases as we speak. They don't have the firepower of the Iranians, but it means the Americans that would be on these bases, if there's anybody left on these bases, can't get out now. You know what I mean? Like, you're not going to just where are you going to roll a convoy to? Like, where's safety? You're not, like any American soldier that's over in the Middle East, God help you, because you may have to shoot your way out of the country. I don't know how you're going to get out of there, especially when they start honing in on the batches of soldiers. Okay, yeah, we got batches of soldiers in motels and hotels. You're going to see a lot of guys with AKs on motorcycles. That's going to happen everywhere. Like, it's asymmetrical warfare. But the thing is it's almost impossible to fight an insurgency enemy like that, because especially when you're not on your base. You know what I mean? Iraq, most of the soldiers got to fire back from a base. You know what I mean? Out and out in the public, that's a different fucking thing, especially when you can't get resupplied. You know what I mean? Like, you send your labs out, okay, and your labs are going down the street. Now, they might have a better chance in these Gulf states because, there is a lot of friendly areas they can go. But they could be ambushed. Like, getting an airplane off the ground, like, I think, like the flights keep getting canceled, so these people are stuck there, civilians, tourists, whatever. The only way out, I think, is going to be by boat. But even at that, like it'll have to be escorted out by warships, or maybe by train. Maybe get out by train. I don't know until the Iranians start, like hitting the rail. But it seems like it's tit for tat. If you hit like the fuel, like the Iranians have already calculated that the Americans are going to take out their oil. So their whole thing is to make people pay, to make people hurt, right? You can take out our oil, but we're not going to say, well, if we do this, it'll be, people are going to starve to death because if we hit back, well, all these civilians, with the oil out and stuff like, no, they're going to be like, well, if you chose the side of the United States, you're a target. That's what they've said. That's what they've been acting on. That's what they're going to do. These guys are not fucking around. You know what I mean? They're there to kill you now. You killed their guy. You killed their Ayatollah. Yeah, the next guy, yeah, again, if he's more hawkish, yeah, those carrier groups, what are you going to send the other, there's only 11 carrier groups. That's it. These things aren't going to last long. Like a lot of people don't realize, like everybody's put way too much emphasis on the power of the U.S. Navy. Yes, after World War II, it was the most powerful, right? Because there was nothing really to take out a warship other than an anti-shipping missile. And they didn't come along until about the mid-50s, where they were actually in numbers, right? You were still on analog, battleships and stuff like that. And nobody in the world, other than the Americans and the British and the French, really, after World War II, had battleships left. I mean, Canada, we had battle cruisers and, the legendary Haida, stuff like that, which was what you would call a frigate or a battle cruiser. Yeah, like that's not the world we live in anymore. You know what I mean? Like naval power is different because of the long range anti-shipping missiles. It's much cheaper. You fire 100 missiles at an aircraft carrier, and 4 good hits from an average anti-shipping missile will cripple and probably kill almost everybody on board. 10 will probably sink the carrier. These hypersonics are designed to be, a one and done. You got to think about how powerful these fucking weapons are. And the thing is you can fire 9 of them, intercept all 9 of them, but one gets through. Again, it's the numbers game. And we saw with the Patriot missile system, and you have to factor in that a Patriot missile, okay, PAC-6 missile, or the PAC-3s are not as new, but the PAC-6 missile is state of the art. It's the best you can get. And 1 in 3 seems to be missing their target of a low-tech $100,000 rocket. You know what I mean? Like that ends up hitting its target close enough, good enough, right? It's not looking good. It's not looking good at all. And I don't think this conflict is going to end anytime soon because, like, the Americans sitting there saying, okay, well, let's resume peace talks with the Iranians. The Iranians like, no, we're not doing that. Trump calling for, kind of de facto ceasefire. And then again, he has to save face because we can never show weakness on the world stage. That's, it's this fucking boomer logic that's just stupid. When you got your ass kicked, you got your ass kicked. You know what I mean? And right now, yes, the Iranians are taking hits. And the cheerleaders out there, the Trump cheerleaders out there, and the Israeli cheerleaders out there, they're showing all this. Oh, look, we're hammering it to them or whatever. We've only lost this many guys. It's only 3. Yeah, because you believe that, right? But I'm looking at these missiles coming in and hitting those things. Anybody that's in there, and we know that the losses have got to be in the thousands by now. Like, there's no doubt about that. Will you ever hear about it? No. But you are going to get U.S. soldiers sitting there going, I just lost all these guys. I just lost all. Like, the videos are going to come in. Yeah, sure, these guys can go to jail for breaking, but what are you going to do? Take a guy that just got hammered and lost, watched 200 of his fucking fellow soldiers get fucking vaporized. What, you're going to throw him in jail for treason? You know what I mean? Like, really? Yeah, how's that going to go over politically? Like, and the thing is that America was the shining beacon on the hill. Everybody in 1980, everybody wanted to be a fucking American. like around the world. It was the country that was for freedom and liberty and good standing and justice and all that. Maybe okay, it was a bit naive to believe that that was going on because again, the tools we have today, we can find out all the corruption. But at least there was a semblance of it. Now it's just this fucking death cult mentality, whether it's on the left or on the right. You got these fucking crazy progressives, the LGBTQ. Where did those? Yeah, all this Frankfurt School of Thought stuff. Who brought that in? Yeah, same architects every time. And then on the other side, you got these fucking death cult neocons that just want to kill everybody, take everybody to war, and just both sides want to fucking run up the debt so high. Again, where is Trump trying to fucking even attempt to fucking balance the budget? Oh, but he did the Doge. Yeah. Any savings from the Doge have been burnt up in the past 2 days again, which he burnt up last year. That's probably what they used the Doge for, was to use that money to fund the fucking war that from last year. That could only last 12 days. I don't even think this one's going to last 12 days because, like the Iranians are firing even more than what they did the last time. And they're firing it everywhere. It's not just going to Israel because they understand there's no use of just hitting the one guy. You got to hit everybody. Because the other guys are backing the guys that try to kill you, right? So they're like, the Iranians have the right strategy. Control the region. Like the Iranians, okay, you're not going to take them on their home turf, right? You're never going to get their deplete their rocket forces without massive, massive losses. And this is why, like, again, when it comes to like China, like taking Taiwan, this is exactly what China would be up against with Taiwan. Maybe to a lesser degree in some ways, because I don't think the Taiwanese have the rocket forces like the Iranians do. But, I bet you the Taiwanese are taking note. It's like, yeah, fuck cruise missiles, man. Let's just build these rockets. They're cheap. Drones and rockets are cheap. you know what I mean? Like, it's like, who knew? We're back to fucking Stalin's orchestra again. With fucking Katyushas. Katyusha 2s, like the Scud launcher. Who would think the Scud launcher would be the most valuable option? A Scud launcher would be the most valuable option in World War III. You know what I mean? It's like, oh, those things are Cold War relics. They don't work. Ask the people in Cyprus. Ask the people in the UAE. Yeah, they fucking work just fine. Again, they might not be able to put a round through a window, but they can hit. They don't have to. They just have to hit the side of the building and it blows half the building away. It's what a loss of life. Like, how many civilians have been killed in this? And who are the families going to blame? Are they going to blame the Iranians? Yeah, probably to a degree. I'm sure, like, again, there's no love lost there between the Iranians and the Saudis or whatever, and the UAE and Jordan and all, wherever everybody's getting hit. The only people that haven't been getting hit yet is Egypt. Why? Because Egypt's like, oh, we're not fucking in this. So what's Israel? Well, we got to take out Egypt because, Turkey, we're not in this. They're not getting hit. Well, we got to take out Turkey. Like, again, the Israelis are fucking insane. They want to kill everybody. They're genocidal maniacs. Yeah. So that's where we're at. I don't see this thing. And again, the Iranians are still using the low-tech stuff. It's very clear that they're using the low-tech stuff. I do believe you're going to start to see a quickening. They are using a few hypersonics, but I think they're only going after the high-value targets. So I think what their strategy seems to be, again, maybe it's not this, but it seems to be, drones come in first, okay? The drones whack whatever they can fucking whack. And it's funny, you watch these things are like a loud mosquito. You just watch them coming in, people shooting at them. It's like, it's the Bismarck 2.0 with the fucking fairy swordfish flying along with a torpedo clothing by, like, drops torpedo cripples the fucking biggest warship, one of the biggest warships, right? Beginning of it. But these things, they come in and you can watch, pow, right? And then right after that, thump, 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 rockets, right? So the drones go after radars, it seems, big time, because I guess they're more precise. And they're going after, like, most of the hits I've seen on the hotels are the drones. I guess because they tend to, they must have like a video link or something to them. because it seems like what they're doing is like, okay, well, the rocket comes in this way, but we want to hit the guy on the fifth floor. You know what I mean? And it seems like that's what they're doing, right? And then right after that, bang, 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 in comes the rockets. And then, like, I'm pretty sure Dachau, I think it's called Dachau, the Israeli, air base. I think that one's probably been hit like fucking 10 times already. When they fire like 20, 30 rockets every time, it's just boom, boom. Like the Iron Dome hits a couple of things, and right after they hit right after. So like it's a catch-22 for the Israelis. It's like if they don't fire the Iron Dome, it's just they get every time like the Iron Dome is in reloading, and I don't know how long it takes to reload one of those things. It's 17 missiles. I know what they do is they back up a truck, they put the battery down, and they go and they take the old one away and they go reload it and they bring it back, right? But that could take a half an hour, 45 minutes, whatever. In that time, bang, 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 bang. You know what I mean? And for every Patriot battery, every Iron Dome battery that gets taken out, that could lead to, like again, they get you on the reload, right? So my money's not on the Israelis. Like they're not a very good military. Like they're good when they have 18 weeks to plan an attack. They always pull it off. Sure. They're no good in battle. They are absolutely no good in battle. I know a lot of people will say, Reg, what are you talking about? The 67 war and the 73 war? When you really analyze it, no, they held off, but against modern technology, they're not doing well at all. So the Israelis are boasted out to be like when you could sit there wait in ambush. Yes, you could have 2 tanks take out 20 tanks. Sure, if they're sitting there waiting in ambush, in an optimal spot. Sure, yeah, that will happen. The Israeli Air Force, yes, when it's flying an F-15, the other guy's flying a MiG-21. Yeah, you could take them out. But when it's like a fucking S-300 air defense system, you don't get near it. You know what I mean? When it's a drone, or a rocket, you can't stop them. And the Israelis don't have the counter to that. They have to use an F-16 pilot, an F-35 pilot. Like to fly to Iran is probably a 2-hour, 3-hour flight. And then you got to, spend 20 minutes, half an hour over the country to try, or around the country to hit your target. And then you got to fly another 2-3 hours back. Pilot can only do this so many times in a week. You know what I mean? And then you're going to, like you give it this time next week, all those those sailors were already tired and worn out in the carrier groups. These guys have already had their missions extended big time, right? So no, it's not going to be the cakewalk, especially as pilot fatigue starts setting in, maintenance crew fatigue starts setting in. You're going to start to see, oh fuck, airplane just lost power, fell out of the sky, that kind of stuff. That happens. Why? Because it like you can't rush a war, but you can't take your time in a war, right? That's the thing. Like again, the rocket truck requires next to no fucking maintenance. An F-16 is like the lowest maintenance aircraft the Americans have, but it stands out on radar and it has a shorter range of only 600 miles, and it takes at least a refueling or 2 refuelings. So you're looking at pilots flying probably anywhere from 3 to 10 hours a day. In stressful situations. Again, when do the Iranians, start using the air defense systems? I think the older stuff did get taken out, but I think it's again the red meat to give a false sense of security that the Americans have impunity that they can fly over the country, because they're clearly not flying directly all over the country. And if you're not flying all over the country, you don't control the airspace. You know what I mean? So I don't believe the U.S. has air dominance that people think they do. I think, yes, they're hitting targets of opportunity and targets that are well known in that sense. But, just because they're not being challenged by MiG-29s and F-4 Phantoms and F-14 Tomcats in the air, it doesn't mean that the Iranians aren't employing a strategy here. They're just not ways. Like, I think once they can take out the aircraft carriers, that's when you're going to see like fucking F-4 Phantom napalm runs, in fucking Riyadh and stuff like that. Like they won't be able to stop them, right? Get the air defenses out, then you can fly your Air Force. You know what I mean? Like we don't know how good the Iranian pilots actually are. It's just they understand that it's it's a losing battle when there's so many airplanes that can be coming in. The Americans can replenish the losses. You know, again, the Iranians, if they start racking up the body count, I think a death by 1,000 cuts will work best for them because they have time on their side, right? So they basically don't have to sink the aircraft carriers right away to create a rally around the flag effect, and then suddenly you have 11 aircraft carrier groups on your shores, right? Off your shores, and boots on the ground. But I'm thinking the Iranians actually might want American boots on the ground, because if they can kill, the more Americans they can kill, the safer they're going to be in the long run, right? So if they can kill all the Americans that are stuck in these Gulf states, might not be easy to do, but if they can kill a lot of them, those are guys they don't have to fight on the battlefield, right? If they can kill, sink, 3 carrier groups, and then the remaining carrier groups come in, they can sink those too, then the Air Force is pretty much all but useless, because the only things that would be able to fly from, say, Italy to Iran would be an A-10, and it would have to refuel a few times. And an A-10 has no chance over Iran with air defense systems. Just not going to happen. The F-15s, they got the range. The F-22s, they got the range. The F-35s don't have the range, right? See, this is why the Russians, like if you look at the Russian Air Force, okay, you might mock their aircraft or whatever, but the Su-34 has a really long internal range, right? This is why, like Canada, like Soviet aircraft designs make more sense for Canada than anything. So, like the Saab Gripen, for example, it's a short range aircraft. Like it has maybe a 300 to 600 mile range with the new variant. That's the downside. So it's more like a short range interceptor. But Sweden's not a big country. However, you put 3 drop tanks on a Saab Gripen, you can fly around for probably 1,200 to 1,600 miles, right? Which is enough to patrol the Arctic. But that's a different story than from trying to fly from even Saudi Arabia to across the Gulf to Iran. 600 miles barely gets you inland. It barely gets you inland, because you got to break your fuel up into like thirds. A third to get there, a third to get back, and loiter time there, right? And then enough for an emergency. So it's tight. You might only have 10 minutes or less to spend on station. So it's a lot like World War II in that way, where like Spitfires and 109, sometimes they would see each other across the channel, but they didn't have enough fuel to engage each other, or they wouldn't make it home. It's like, okay, you got 10 minutes over the UK, 10 minutes, 10 minutes over Germany, and then turn around and come back, right? Because they only had like a 450 mile range. So strangely enough, what they need is like a new and this is, people would laugh at this, but an aircraft that would work over Iran would be like a CF-100. Why? Because it has an internal range of 2,000 miles. Put some drop tanks on that and have air-to-air refueling. You know what I mean? And if you're not, as long as you're not challenging other aircraft, but it'd have to be technologically advanced enough to be able to basically take out, air defense systems and stuff like that. But like the Super Hornets, for example, which I always thought Canada was just going to go ahead with the Super Hornet, which would have made for a replacement, would have been a no-brainer, right? But the Super Hornets, the Growler model, there's only like 50 Super Hornets out there. I think maybe even less, because I think there was a few of them that just crashed from maintenance problems or whatever, pilot error or whatever. But there's only a handful of Growler models, like the tandem seat electronic warfare ones. So you could see the return of the A6 Prowler and A6 Intruders, which are well proven for aircraft for going after air defense units and stuff like that. But even at that, those things they're so dated, and again, they stand out on radar like crazy. But those are the type of aircraft that would work because they have long ranges, right? And but they're not dogfighters. They're basically fighter. You call them, medium bombers or whatever, light bomber, medium bomber. Those things I think would make more sense over like F-18s and even the Growler, just because of the range. It's just the Growler can defend itself in a dogfight. You know what I mean? But the A6 Intruder and the A6 Prowler, yes, they're mothballed, but those aircraft would have been a better choice for the Americans for this kind of operation, just because you wouldn't have to rely on air-to-air refueling as much, because you could keep your aircraft carriers 500 miles away from. Although, like again, whenever they decide to fire the long-range cruise missiles, might be obsolete, but you can keep them that far. They can fly all the way to the target and all the way back. Like Iran is a big country, like it doesn't look big on the map, but when you think about it, it's a very big country. It's huge. It's not the size of Quebec, but it's about half the size. Oh. Half the size? Half the size of Quebec? That's fucking huge. That's fucking huge. Like Saudi Arabia is huge too. It's slightly bigger than Iran. Israel is tiny, 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 tiny. It's this little fucking thing right here. Oh yeah, and the Suez Canal is also closed too. So no oil getting out here, no oil getting out here, no oil getting out here. Everybody's stuck in here. Ships are getting blown up in here. Which Iran said pretty soon they're going to start just going around just sinking ships. You know what I mean? If it has anything to do with the United States or Israel, like they can't get out. Like there was I think a crew from India that tried to get out. Yeah, they found out the hard way. When the Iranians say you don't go past the strait or you're going to get fucking sunk, they actually kind of meant it. But there's always stupid people that say, "Well, we'll see if we can. Our freighter can outrun the speedboats." Yeah. That was a fucking dumb idea. But I bet you it was a corporate decision. You're on the job. If you want to get paid, you got to get that freighter out, or else, it's like, get people killed, right? Again, it's the world we live in, But look, you're witnessing the death of the petrodollar here. It's a nightmare. It's a fucking nightmare, and it's not going to be. You have to understand these actions are going to be felt by every single person on the planet. No ifs, no ands, no buts. This will be a situation where when the shortages, remember, there is like strategic reserves and shit like that, right? And so on day one, you don't feel the shock. There's a delayed effect, right? And that's why they have strategic reserves, is to I think oil went up to something like $80 a barrel already, right? So you get these reserves, right, which kind of hold off the shock effect on the oil markets for Brent crude and stuff like that. But the thing is that is short lived. Like under Joe Biden, what he did to keep the oil price, the gas prices low, was tap into the strategic reserve. Obama did the same thing. Now, Trump tried to refill the strategic reserves, right? So that, mainly for this war, I guess, but it doesn't matter. The oil's not going to get there anyway. Like, you're not going to be able to oil you're not going to paratroop. Like, there's going to be no Red Dawn style battle in Iran. Like, it's not going to be like Desert Storm. The Iraqis had SA-9 air defense systems and stuff like that. They had lots of air defense, but the guys didn't know how to use it, right? The Iranians, they shot down or hijacked another RQ-9 drone there. Another one of those. They basically stole another one of those. $130 million drone just before the fighting started. So just before the fighting started, you had, the day before or whatever, you had a drone disappear. The Americans don't like, the drone put out like a distress signal, and then that was it. It was gone, and it just vanished. So chances are the Iranians, commandeered it and stole it. And then you had an Iranian dignitary die in a helicopter crash. And then right after that, there was a couple of Americans killed, 2 or 3 Americans killed on a drone attack of some sort. Still, nobody claimed whether it was like a rebel group or if it was the actual Iranians, but it's something like that. And then the day after, the war kicked off. But again, the Iranians have the ability to do that. Okay, so then why haven't they just shot down aircraft willy nilly? Well, I don't think they want to. I think what they want to do is, I think they want to pull like a Vietnam type of situation where it's like, okay, look, the best way to protect ourselves is let them hit us with this, that, and the other thing, but just get them to occur losses so that when we make our real pounce, they won't have anybody to fucking defend themselves with. Think about what's happening in the Ukraine, okay? Like the Ukrainians are losing the war. This is clear. But they're losing the war at a rate where they're burning up Russian troops, right? So the Russians are winning. There's no doubt about that. And the way the West is fighting the Ukrainians is, again, they're sacrificing them is what they're doing. And again, it's like I said right from day one, the reason why Russia wouldn't have went to war with Ukraine is that they know that they were going to use the Ukraine to, fight the Russians to the last Ukrainian. And that's apparently what's going on. But right now, the Ukrainians are in a rock and a hard place because, again, they're running out of ammo and all kinds of shit. And Israel will always take precedence over Ukraine because the Iranian war, or the Ukrainian war, even though most Ukrainians probably haven't figured it out yet, is, yes, it's a war against NATO, okay? Russia against NATO. That's mainly what it is. Ukraine is the proxy, but that's half of it. It's a war for Israel. Again, why? Who is Zelensky? He's a dual citizenship Israeli. Who is most of his cabinet? Dual citizenship Israelis. Who did who is there doing? Getting the what you call it, the color revolution going on the Maidan, backed by funded by George Soros and Victoria Nuland and all that. The Mossad. There was Mossad agents on fucking public TV saying, yeah, we're here to help the right sector overthrow the government. Literally, exact words, not paraphrasing, exact fucking words. I'm sure they've wiped it's kind of like the dancing Israelis that were there to document the 9/11 thing. Oh yeah, we can't let you see that. Yeah. Yeah. Anyway, I think the cat's out of the bag. I think we know who the evildoers are. You know what I mean? Again, it's not all of them. I get it, but the ones in power, absolutely. And all these shills like your Ben Shapiro's and Mark Levine's sit there saying that everybody has to die for fucking Israel. You know what I mean? But they've got the boomers that are like, they still believe that but they're the chosen people. Like they have no nuance of okay, well maybe you need to read your Bible. Just read the fucking front page of the Ten Commandments. You know what I mean? Start with that. That trumps chosen people all the time. You still have to obey the Ten Commandments. The Israelis are not doing that. Right, so it doesn't mean like I say, it doesn't mean that I like the Iranians or I'm advocating for the Iranians, but I'm telling you what they're doing, and it's clear what they're doing. Yes, they are taking losses. Yes, they are getting stuff hit, but the stuff that's getting hit, like I haven't seen the American footage of them hitting anything of any real significance in Iran that would even come close to getting regime change. Like if they put a B-52 over fucking Tehran or whatever. Well, number one, will get shot down, but in carpet bomb Tehran, the Israelis would love that. Like, can you imagine the Israelis with B-52s? Holy fuck, they'd kill everybody. But the thing is that again, they want regime change, yes, but they want to have the excuse to nuke the Iranians more. Why? Because you can kill more Iranians, right? Like, it's not about a handful of guys running the country. It never has been. It's about, look what they did to Syria. Like, how many Syrians died in this war, conflict? Why? And who died? Well, it's the military guys, right? But the thing with the Syrians, what's amazing about them is how few guys were actually holding the country. Like, there was tens of thousands, and probably a million jihadis fighting each other, right? But the Tiger Force and the Eagle Force of Syria, with the Syrian Arab Army, they were basically 1,500 to 3,000 guys. These were the guys that were predominant taking out ISIS. There was a handful of them, but they were better soldiers. But somehow, the Mossad and the CIA got the upper hand on those guys, and the ISIS guys ended up getting win. But again, when you're backed by the entirety of the West, of course ISIS was going to win, right? But that said, who lost? Well, civilians. Like, how many people were killed in the Syrian war? I don't know. But the Iranians are going to make sure that doesn't happen there. That's why they kill their protesters. Because it's just like, okay, there's a 1 in 2 chance it's a Mossad agent, you know what I mean, or CIA agent. So, and if not, it's a dissident that just they don't have to deal with them later. So, heavy crackdown, sure. Crimes against humanity, sure. But strategically viable, yeah. You know, again, they're going to do what they're going to do. They know who their enemies are. Yeah, the difference with the Americans is they don't know who their enemies are. Like, if you really understood that Israel hates you and they just want you to die as a stupid goy, I think, you know, most people are coming, you know, they're coming out of the ether of this, right? They're starting to figure this out, that, you know, this isn't about racist white supremacist colonials. This is about Zionist, you know, evangelicals who are not Christians at all. They're just Zionists and crazy, insane Israelis. That's what it's about. And you know, these crazy Jewish groups, right? I'm not saying it's all of them, but I'm saying the ones in power, look where we're at. Am I wrong? Call me whatever name you want. Am I wrong? You know, that's why they censor everybody. You know, like, I'm sure this channel's not going to last long because of that. But, you know, I got to do the right thing. So the Israelis are the bad guys. The Americans are the bad guys. It's a hard thing for people to accept that they're the baddies. But, you know, when you are, you are. You know, I've accepted it a long time ago, and I've been bitching about it ever since. Once you figure it out, you can't lie about it, because why would I go along with just to save face? You know, like, what benefit is it for my people to have enemies around the world? There is none, right? What benefit is it for my people to go fight and die for Israel? There is none, right? Now, Canadians aren't there yet. Will we join in on it? I don't think we will. Carney, this is the thing about Pierre Poilievre. Pierre Poilievre will do whatever Israel tells him to do. That's a danger, right? Carney is he's on the other side of the coin of that, right? The liberal base is anti-Israel, which is really ironic, because the mass crazy psychosis of the liberals comes from Jewish machinations in the colleges and stuff like that. These are all, track it back. Call me, like, just look at all the prominent LGBTQ people, where that comes from. They're all Jewish. The Frankfurt School of Thought and critical theory and all the critical theories and critical race theory. Who are the architects? They're all Jewish. The open mass immigration stuff, all Jewish. Again, it's you can call me whatever you want, but am I wrong? You can't call me wrong. It's too trackable. It's openly admitted stuff. I'm just telling you what they say, you know. But you know, it's weird. It's a weird world. You know what I mean? It's like, yeah. Anyway, so I got to call it as I see it, you know. And what I'm telling people is keep your head on a swivel. I got other stuff I got to get done, so I got to wrap this one up. We'll see how bad it is tonight, and you know, like there'll be a few of these videos until things die down, and then I'll go under the wire again. But it's just, we're at that time. Like, this is the fall of Western civilization. This is not the first domino to fall, but this is a big one. This is basically the fuck you to the Rothschild banking system, big time going on. And mind you, don't kid yourself, they play both sides too. Look, there's a reason why they put a Rothschild bank in China, right? And there's a reason why George Soros has been calling about the pivot to Asia for years and years and years. A lot of what you're seeing is just orchestrated. It's just, there's other interests in there too, such as the Israelis killing everybody in their region for the Greater Israel Project and for end times prophecy and shit. Again, you got to factor it all in. They're insane. They're all insane. They're evil and insane. You know, like, that's the people that are running the show. It's everywhere. It doesn't matter what party, if they're on the left, on the right. Again, seeing all these left-wing people anti-war now when their guy was doing it too. And then to see all the right-wingers that are out there going, well, your guy did it, so, you know, now you care, so don't say anything now. No, we should all be saying something now. Okay, you were fooled on the left, you were fooled on the right. Now let's all be anti-war together and save humanity, right? Because this isn't a self-defense war. This is a war. Like, there's, no matter how they try to fucking propagandize and spin it, it was just like Trump. That's the good thing about Trump is he's such a bull in a china shop that it works against him. Like, you know, like, You can't come out there and say that this was a war of aggression by the Iranian side when you're the guy doing the killing. You know what I mean? Like it just doesn't fly. I know there's some MAGA people. It doesn't matter what Trump says or what he does. He can, like he said, I could walk down the street and kill a baby and nobody would say nothing. You had the same thing with Hillary Clinton. All these left wing people like defending Hillary Clinton. All these left wing people going on about Trump being in the Epstein files now. Apparently, there's like a million pages of the 3 million pages are pertaining to Trump. Whether that's true or not, I don't know, but it wouldn't surprise me. But that would also explain Trump's behavior. Okay, so he was in on it right from day one. They got something on him, and I know they do. Like again, there's just this. Almost everybody in the Epstein files. I'm sure there's exceptions, but anybody that's got their picture taken with Epstein or whatever, they need to be investigated. We don't have any brave law enforcement or military that'll do it, unfortunately. But people are starting to figure shit out. Because at this point, if you got 3 fucking million pages of documents and nobody went to jail in 10 years, and you gave all these fucking pedophiles that much time to clear their fucking hard drives, you deserve the death penalty for that. Well, I can't go after it like Pam Bondi. Oh, but it would destroy the system if we arrest everybody. Well, maybe that system needs to be fucking destroyed. Yes, we'll take the pain. Let's save the kids. Let's stop these wars. Anyway, I digress. But yeah, we'll see what the body, I'm sure by this time next week, we'll have a better accuracy of how, we're never going to know. It's like Ukraine. How many people died in the Ukraine so far? Nobody fucking knows. They don't even know. It could be in the millions. You know what I mean? It could be in the millions. It's hard to say. You can't trust the numbers. But even with the low numbers, it's a lot of people. There's a lot of war dead right now, even with just the low numbers, if you add up the civilians and everything. The collateral damage is freaking something else. That's hurting economically. That's going to hurt tourism for the Gulf states for sure. Have to pay for all these people to stay in their hotels for free, and then having their hotels vaporized. Again, you take out these airports, every aircraft that gets destroyed at an airport, the cheapest fucking airliner is going to be like $5 million. You know what I mean? It's astronomical the amount of revenue loss that's going to be. Add in the oil, the tankers. Oh my God, we're talking. There's got to be $100 billion worth of damage already, maybe $200 billion worth of damage already. Night 3, you know what I mean? That's crazy. That's crazy. We're going on to night 4. We could be talking about $500 billion within a month of revenue loss. I hope everybody's stocking up on food, medicine, bullets, bread, and bandages, man. We're in it. We're in it. There's not, okay, World War III is coming. We're in it. We've been in it for a while. When people ask me, Reg, well, when do you think it's going to be World War III? We're in it. What you're asking is when are they going to launch the nukes? Nobody knows. We're already at DEFCON 1. You know what I mean? We're at war. It's not DEFCON 2. We're at DEFCON 1. It's just, do the Iranians have nukes? Will they use them in counter response? And the terror cells, the blowback. Again, I think the Iranians are more likely to use chemical warfare on Israel than nukes. But the Iranians always seem to let their opponent make the first move. They let the Americans hit them, and then they hit them back. Right? They don't seem to, and they're not doing proportional response right now. They're doing strategic response of eliminating U.S. air bases. There's never going to be U.S. Army military back on those bases again, even under a ceasefire. It's just going to be, no, that's a no-go zone. You put anybody there, we're hitting it. We're going to turn those things into fucking cratered parking lots. That's it. Why? Because why let them build up so they can attack you again? That's the way the Iranians are looking at it. Okay, we're going to drive the Americans from the region. The Gulf states are going to get in line or they're going to die. Because again, the Saudis, their military cannot take the fucking Iranians. There's no way they can do that. And as soon as the Americans get out of there, that's it. They've lost the region. Israel at that point is pretty much as good as dead. Look, Hezbollah's firing rockets. Their rockets don't mean anything. Really, they do like superficial damage, but they can help to overwhelm what the Lebanese are doing. Look, the Israelis hit them; they're hitting back. Again, you might not like Lebanon, whatever, but the Israelis, again, in the chaos of war, it's like, okay, yeah, well, it's like they're doing exactly what I said. They're gonna, finish off the rest of the Gazans if they can, and they're gonna, go into the West Bank, and they're gonna go into Lebanon. They're gonna go all that. And they're talking about, the Israelis are talking about boots on the ground in Lebanon. They tried that in 2006, and for the first time in 2006, the Israelis found out that they didn't have supremacy anymore, military supremacy, because they lost tanks left, right, and center. Yes, the mighty Merkava, the most indestructible tank in the world, we're getting fucking vaporized trying to get into Lebanon. They haven't been able to do that ever since. The only thing they can do is these gunship helicopters and stuff like that. But I can imagine there's going to be MadPad launchers sent to, if they're not already there. The Israelis don't have that big of an air force. They have maybe 300 fighters and maybe about 300 or 400 attack helicopters. They're not going to last long. Like they have about 1,300 tanks. God knows how many they've lost in Gaza. But anti-tank, drones, and it's even at that. Even if they don't lose the equipment, it's just the fuel. They're going to lose the fuel. Like these drones are taking out fuel depots. You see a fucking semi-truck tanker there, you hit it. Like, again, the Israelis, how are you going to resupply them with fuel? You know what I mean? Like, how are you going to resupply them with fuel? Like, it's just, yeah, they really fucked up on this one. Again, but crazy people will do stupid things, right? Like, again, so it's like, anyway, I digress. So, we'll see what it is. I hate that this is going on. None of it needed to happen. But Israel and the United States chose to do this path. The consequences will be what they will be if the Iranians survive this. I mean, and I think they're going to. That's it. Like, they become the rulers of the Middle East. There's like the only people that would be able to challenge them would be Turkey, and even at that, Turkey can't really do much. If the United States can't take out Iran, neither can Turkey, right? But if Turkey and Iran become frenemies, nobody can take them. Nobody will be able to take them. And that said, the second the shooting stops, you have to understand the Iranians are going to stockpile like crazy for the next round because they know it's coming. And air power alone, I've been saying this, air power alone cannot win a war. Send as many B-2s and B-52s and what? Look, the mighty F-15s, the almost perfect record. I mean, there's been a few of them damaged in battle and very few lost. Probably, Desert Storm, up to Desert Storm, the F-15 never known defeat. Yes, it was a friendly fire incident that shot down these aircraft. Okay, fine. But you see how easily they can get shot down. The F-15 is obsolete. It's good in a dogfight. There's no doubt about that. The pilots are excellent. I mean, you don't fly, you're not an eagle driver, as they call them, unless you're the best of the best, right? And the only place from the Eagle is into the F-35 or into the F-22. And I can tell you that the F-22 is obsolete. The F-35, they're holding on, but the air defense systems haven't been really, for the very little air defense systems that have been destroyed so far. No, the Iranians they're holding them back. It's very clear that they're holding them back. So, but why? Why? What is it that I think what they're going to do is sink the aircraft carriers, and then when a whole bunch of airplanes come in to bomb them, like to do like a 10,000 airplane blitzkrieg, that's when they're going to pull out the air defense system. It makes sense that they would do that. Same reason why they're holding back their fighters, because they do have about 300 fighters. They're obsolete. So, yeah, keep your head on a swivel. I'm sure there's going to be blowback terrorist attacks everywhere. Yeah, there we go. Be safe.